my career or my podcasting was about to be short.
You're getting canceled before you,
Yeah,
like you
before
were
I even
starting to
took off.
climb. That's bull. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all right. It just
Well, maybe you'll become a billionaire, and then you can open up your own YouTube. That's what needs to happen. That's the next.
you think, yeah,
That's like the next Twitter thing. Is someone needs to make their own YouTube somehow.
it will happen.
Yeah, eventually.
It will happen.
But I mean, it's probably a huge infrastructure. You probably need a huge warehouse, servers, and all kinds of crap. It's probably
Data,
a lot bigger than I can even imagine. But it's probably a big thing.
yeah, yeah. It got to be like those warehouses, those Amazon's warehouses, so you can put, servers, data collection.
Yeah, and you
Or
probably need like some special power supply. I imagine like
you own,
outside the city limits, because like
yeah,
I know Tesla had to do that. Tesla had to make literally their own power supply, mainly because the city electricity was too dirty. It's like too up and down. So, anyways, it'd be a big venture, but I think it needs to happen.
yeah, it needs to. I mean, we nowadays now with these US aid drama coming up, all these $1 million thrown to political and other news companies, and now we're figuring out that basically USA was a money laundering
Yeah,
office in the White House.
we're
So,
recording all this.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we just put it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm making sure like you press
Yeah.
the button before we.
No, I
start.
just I because my son is not here, so basically I had to do it myself. So yeah, good. I have to make sure they're going. But well, let me introduce you real quick. You're a former U.S. Navy SEAL with an expertise as a sniper, medic, and a team leader. You're the CEO and founder of Neptune Spear Farms LLC, and you work also at the USDA Natural Resources Conservative System
Service. I was
Yeah.
a Pathways intern.
Service. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Also, you have a bachelor's in science from the University of Arizona, I believe.
No, it's University or Fresno State.
Oh,
it's
Fresno
So
State.
yeah.
Okay, and let me see what is.
But I went to U of A. I started graduate school. I was in a PhD
Okay.
program, and I dropped out to start a nonprofit,
Okay,
start my own
yeah, it's right here,
farm.
Fresno. And you now you're dedicated to transform uh, oil land, old land to make it federal again. That's what you're working on now.
Yeah. So I mean, I've only done one so far, but there's a lot of land all over Texas, really all over the world that's used for oil drilling back in the day, and a lot of it it's kept vacant, and they can't really do much of it with it. And so what I'm going to do is start buying up these properties, and then fixing them up, and then turning them into farms, and also do research on it, basically identifying, which plants, which system is the best way to take up some of the stuff in this oil, because a lot of the hydrocarbons aren't that big of a problem, but some of it, the big problem is like the heavy metals, because the heavy metals kind of just sit there, and no one really knows what to do with it other than literally just pick up the soil and take it to a plant. When you're talking about 100 acres, you can't take up all that soil, and so you're going to have to come up with some better system. That's sort of what I'm going to be doing too, because I also have, it's a separate business, but it's Demeter Solutions, where I do research on that behalf. So yeah.
Man, I would like to dig into that because that is very, especially in Texas. It's a lot of land that used to be drilled and now it's just like stagnant, and they just transform it to like hunting land or something else besides being productive. So that's something that I would like to dig in. But I would like to start with your childhood, where you were born and how was your childhood.
Hey, thank you, and I really appreciate you being here today watching this video. I would like to say thank you to Rick from Viking Tactical to hook me up with Sean and make this podcast possible. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate all your support, by the way. It is highly, highly appreciated. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care, God bless, and stay ready. Bye-bye.
My life was not good at all. My dad was in the Navy, had a really bad childhood. Was diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar after, I guess, 12 years in the Navy. He had made chief, and he was molested as a child. Despite all that, did good in the Navy. Was an MH-60 mechanic. Was the lead mechanic, and I guess he made some sort of mistake. But I guess the Navy didn't really view it as a mistake, but he internally viewed it as a mistake. I guess he didn't tighten some bolt correctly, and some of the pilots died. And after that, he just kind of lost it. And like that was like right around where I was born. And so my parents were splitting up. He got really, really violent with my mom. And then around, I guess when I was 3 years old, they split up, and my mom got into drugs. I almost got put into adoption. And then around, I guess when I was 5 or 6, after moving around to different motels, church homes, she finally got remarried to a nice guy. He was my stepdad. He died when he was 65, so about 10 years ago. But he was a good dad. He was an alcoholic, but he was like the nicest guy ever. Like, so he was like definitely a functioning alcoholic. But I guess when I was 11 or 12, he just quit drinking cold turkey.
Really?
Yeah, so that was cool to watch, and became more present with me. Take me to all my baseball practices. He, wound up being an umpire for a lot of the games while I was pitching, which is kind of funny. He was like the umpire. That was always an issue when I was a kid. But my mom she did her best. I don't really hold much against her. We're still on talking terms. I still interact with her, but she was an alcoholic and sort of violent too. I got into wrestling when I was really young, so she couldn't really hit me anymore. Like I could just kind of deal with it, but she was definitely like a mean drunk. But she was abandoned in a closet by her family when she was like 2 or 3. And then like whatever CPS was back then, they picked her up, and then she got adopted by my grandparents. But I think with genetics and that childhood, she had a lot of issues, but she was definitely like a functioning alcoholic. I mean, both my parents were functioning alcoholics. They worked their asses off, but all of it, I didn't even think it was abnormal. I just sort of thought everyone sort of dealing with alcoholics. It wasn't until I was in the military and I got diagnosed with like traumatic brain injuries and PTSD, and I started talking about my childhood that I realized my childhood was abnormal. But I guess by most accounts, it's not that normal. But I mean, despite that, I was motivated. They really didn't have to push me to do anything. I enjoyed school. I was good at school. Got into wrestling, football, baseball. Excelled at all those. And then I guess when I was around, I guess it was 5th grade, my half brother, so we had the same dads, different moms. He became a Navy SEAL a few years prior to me being in 5th grade, but he was part of the Leapfrogs. And so that's a recruiting team for the SEAL teams. And they jump into stadiums and they put like smoke on their heels.
Oh, I seen
and
those.
And they kind of do all kinds of crazy shit when they're jumping in. And I saw that when I was in 5th grade. I grew up in Philadelphia, and he came to the air show, the Willow Grove air show. And then he jumped into the old Philadelphia Veterans Stadium for a baseball game. And he was there for an entire week. I got to see the whole thing. I got to see all the practice jumps. I got to wear like the old Philly Fanatic mascot costume. And so I was like interacting with all these Navy SEALs for a week. And one key memory of that was my brother had a cutaway. So his chute didn't open properly. And he had a cutaway during one of his practice jumps and almost died and like acted like nothing happened. He came over, just like gave me a hug. And it was like at that moment, I was like, I want to fucking do that. Like, I want to be so badass that I can like do that, be calm, cool, and collected. And then from there, I went to be a Navy SEAL ever since I was in 5th grade.
So that was the point, seeing your half brother. That was basically your motivation. That was your role model to jump into the military.
Yeah, I mean that was probably like one of the most
Influential.
It's probably the most defining moment of my entire life, because ever since I mean, if you ask any of my childhood friends, ever since I was in 5th grade, I've always wanted to be a Navy SEAL. So like literally everything I did was Navy SEAL. If I had like a book report and I had an option to choose a book, was about Navy SEALs. Like when all my wrestling coaches knew I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, so they would push me a little harder. I mean, everyone knew that's what I wanted to do. To the point where I was a good wrestler. I took like second in a regional tournament in middle school, and I was supposed to be on varsity going to high school. I actually quit all sports to focus on being a Navy SEAL because I did the screening test, and all my wrestling coaches were telling me, "Hey, this is going to help you become a Navy SEAL." But right around then, I got wind of the actual standards you needed to get into buds, and I couldn't actually pass it. Like the swim, I couldn't pass. The run, I could pass all the push-ups and all that kind of, but the swim, I couldn't. And I was like, I need to do something different. So I actually pissed off all my coaches, baseball, football, wrestling. I quit all of it, and I started doing SEAL training academies. So there's this guy named Don Mann. He used to run adventure races. He was a former Navy SEAL, and then had Navy SEAL training camps for civilians. And I went to those and got like completely demolished in those. And I realized I needed to start training for those. So I did. Wound up doing 3 of those. So for 2 years, I didn't do any sports at all, and that's all I did. I basically just worked out solo. I would work out solo, and then periodically, I lived in Philadelphia, drive down to Virginia Beach. My parents were awesome, took me to these events, and I would see where I was at. And then finally, my senior year, I was passing all those events, and I knew I could pass the standards to get into buds, and I wound up playing sports again my senior year. But I only did wrestling and football my senior year. And taking those 3 years off was not good. I didn't do. I wasn't like terrible, but I didn't do as good as I used to. And so I wanted to be Navy SEAL anyway. But then 9/11 was my senior year, so like I had toyed about maybe going to college, maybe becoming an officer. But then when 9/11 happened, there was 2 things. 9/11 happened, and I found out Navy SEAL officers actually can't become like combat medics. They can't become comms guys. They don't become snipers. And so I was like, why the hell would I go to college to become a Navy SEAL if I can't do the cool shit?
Mm-hmm.
And then 9/11 happened. I was like I want to sign up now. So it was like literally like 2 months after 9/11, went to the recruiter, started the whole process, and got signed up in 2001, and then graduated in 2002 in May, and then went straight into the military in July.
So before we jump into your military career, can you tell me what was your workout on the on preparation to Navy SEAL? Because a lot of people ask me on it. To honestly, they'd be like, "Hey, what needs to be, the workouts and stuff like that?" Because it's way different. I tried out for the Special Forces. I went to the SFAS, and that was a different workout. So I tell people like I tell you from the Army side, I could tell you some, but not from the Navy side. What was your preparation, your workout routine to prepare for buds?
Well, the short answer for if anyone's listening that want to become a Navy SEAL, the short answer is just go on. I think it's NavySealSwick.com. Just go in there, and they have a whole workup from like where you should start from week 1 all the way to the end. Because the problem is, if you just try to go straight into the standards that you need to do for third phase of buds, and you just go straight into it, you're going to have all kinds of issues. The main ones I see with people is shin splints, because people will go straight in. They'll put boots on, run on hard pavement, and they'll start doing 35 miles a week 1, and then they can do it because they're young and they're tough, but then they get shin splints. So the short answer is go on that website, and they have a whole thing, and it stair steps you in. I think it probably starts with maybe 4 or 5 miles a week, and it's probably going to tell you to wear nice padded sneakers, go on preferably a track, because a lot of the tracks are kind of spongy.
Mm-hmm.
Do that. So I would do that and just follow that pipeline all the way down from the week 1, however it was. But when I was a kid, I kind of I know what the screening test was, so I just do a screening test basically every day. I was already running, so I didn't get shin splints, but that's how I did it. But I would not recommend that for most people. I would just follow that plan. But with that being said, though, if people are listening to this and thinking you're going to become a Navy SEAL because of some motivational speaker, this and that, all those motivational speakers are basically, they're snake oil salesmen, because they are, and I know the data on it, because the dropout rate in buds right now is anywhere from 70-90%.
Wow.
And that's you got to think that's like actually really a lot higher than it really is for the general public, because the general public, if they try to, even within the military, try to get into buds, basic underwater demolition and SEAL training, if they try to do that just to get in, most of them don't even pass to get in. And so that's a high dropout rate already, but that's a big waste of money for the Navy. So over the years, they've got all these motivational speakers, this and that, all these different gurus to try to like get rid of that dropout rate to make people mentally stronger, and they can't. The dropout rate's the exact same, and yet I still see people online selling all these products like, I can make you a Navy SEAL. I'm like, you can't. So really, buds, it kind of just reveals what's already inside of you. I'm not saying like don't listen to any of them, but like don't get this pie in the sky. Like, if I follow this program, I'm gonna be a Navy SEAL. So like if you want to be a Navy SEAL, I would focus on just getting in there, and that's it. Like, focus on just getting in there and do it in a healthy way, and it just pass like the basic test, which I think is like a 500. I think it starts off with push-ups. No, it starts off the swim, 500-yard swim, certain time. I think it's like 12:30, and then you got to do push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, and then the run, 1.5 mile run. So I would just focus on that, but don't be like buying all these products and this and that, thinking that they're going to help you, because it's all bullshit. It really is, based on the data. I mean, if someone's got some cool program that I'm not aware of, tell me. But the dropout rates, from I gather, is the same.
Man, that's crazy. Because I've seen a few videos. I remember back in the day watching videos as, I think, the History Channel used to have some called the Hell Week, whatever. And the dropout rate was crazy. And for us, like for the Army side, I think the most dropout was day one and land navigation.
Okay.
They was like for the Army side special operation. That was the most, like, where you see the most dropouts. Because day one, they just smoke you on day one.
Yeah.
It's like all day doing exercise. And then in land navigation, it just, people don't know how to navigate. Most of them, they come from, I will not try to diminish anyone, but they come from support units. They're not rangers or combat arms that you get more time in the field, and they just don't know how to navigate, and that's the bottom line. But that's crazy. 70 to 90% dropout ratio. It is high though.
Yeah, the thing is, again, that's of the people who make it through. Because if you look at the dropout rate of the people, because I remember in boot camp, we must have had like 50 people try out, because like it was the tryout. It's the same test, I think. At least back then, it was for EOD, diver, and SEAL. It was all the same test just to get in. And so there's about 50 of us, and only 3 of us passed the test to get in.
Wow.
Because I mean, like, it's kind of cutthroat too, because they threw all 50 people into the deep end of the pool and just said, start your swim. So in the initial phases of it, you're getting like kicked in the face. You're trying to fight to get to the front of the pack. So that 79% is of those people who actually got there to even try out. So if you were to like look at the dropout rate of just the average military person, it's probably like 98%, I would imagine.
Wow. Yeah. There is not that many SEALs in service. How many SEALs are, like, when you were in your time in the SEALs, how many SEALs there were in service? Like,
probably, I think like less than 2,000.
Right. That's
and like maybe 75% are probably deployable, because then at that point, the other 25% higher ups. But it's like less than probably 2,000.
Wow.
And they're only producing, I think, maybe 200 to 250 per year. And I think since Vietnam, if you include the UDT teams, the underwater demolition teams, I think there's been like 30,000 SEALs ever since 1962. So it's a pretty small community.
It is small. So you went through BUDS. What class you were on BUDS?
I started out with 245 and I graduated with 246.
Okay.
I went through 245's Hell Week. And then, yeah.
Can you tell me now, your first-hand account, can you tell me your experience like on Hell Week? What was that like? Just take me through it, because I never done it. You've seen on TV. It's different from actually being there. Can you take me from the day one till they finish?
Yeah, it's hard to describe, like, because it's like an experience, and it's 5.5 days. But it's the short answer. It's like a spiritual awakening. Like, I've never done like acid or anything, but like I was like hallucinating. So like to me, I hear people talk about, like I have a lot of friends now and SEALs too that are doing psychedelic treatment for veterans of PTSD, and I hear their experiences of like ayahuasca. For me, that's what it felt like. It felt like this spiritual awakening because you're staying up for 5.5 days straight, and when you're supposed to go to sleep, your body actually produces DMT, and so like your dreams, like if you were to take that chemical in your brain that makes you dream, and to take it during the day, you're actually gonna hallucinate. But when you're up for 5.5 days, I think your body like still produces that, and I started hallucinating like during the day. I remember the third day, it was at night, and we were on Zodiac boats just rowing. It was like 6 of us rowing, and I had like a hardcore like hallucination of 4 horse. Like it was like the 4 horsemen of the Bible and like the apocalypse. Like that's what I saw coming at me, and like the whole time it felt like I wasn't in control of my body. By like Tuesday, by Wednesday, it felt like I wasn't even in control of my body. It felt like some spirit was like pushing me forward because everyone was quitting around me, and like something inside me, it felt like I was like a passenger in my body. Like I was like in a, like if you visualize my body as a car, and like I wasn't even driving. It felt like something was pushing me, and it was just like it was the most bizarre, like spiritual event of my entire life. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna go into all the details of it because it's being too long winded, and I think you really need visualizations of it. But there's so many videos now of Hell Week. But you start off Sunday night, you do a breakout, all kinds of explosions, everything, and you're basically just doing PT all day. You're in and out of the water. They do surf torture, so you're getting put into a hypothermic state while getting surf tortured. It's kind of like imagine being waterboarded while being put in a hypothermic state. And that's actually when most people quit. Because you do that repeatedly, and they have all these graphs, and they torture you without killing you. And that's actually what breaks people. It's not the swims, the runs, this and that. It's the surf torture and being cold and wet all day. That's what you're doing for 5.5 days. And people think, oh, it's San Diego, it's not that cold. But you know, if our blood temperature needs to be about 98.6. But if you even get like 96, 95, that's hypothermia. You get into like 94, like you're going to be in the hospital. And so the water is 55 degrees. So if you're in water, anything below 98.6, if it's even 95, your body eventually is going to get to that 95 if it can't produce enough heat. And that's exactly what happens. So the problem is like some people will joke around. It's like, oh, if it's a warm Hell Week, it's easier, but it's actually not, because the problem is if it's warmer, they have charts, so you stay in the water longer. So you're getting surf tortured for longer. So you're getting like that waterboarding aspect of it. Because what they do is you have to sit down, lock arms, and your feet have to face the water, and you lay down, and the water just comes over your top of your head and comes up your nose. You have to sit there, and you're basically being waterboarded while being in a hypothermic state. So if it's colder, you get colder faster, but then you're not getting the surf torture as long. So it sucks. And that's all the stuff that people see, all the cool stuff they see with all the log PT, that's not when people quit. It's when they're just sitting in the water, being cold, and then the thought of it, they're like, hey, we have to get in the water. And then they ring the bell.
They don't want to be in that position anymore.
Yeah, and I've seen guys, I've seen like tough guys. There was like Marines in our unit, in our class. There was like former Rangers, all kinds of like really tough guys. I saw like literally Olympic caliber athletes, like wrestlers, swimmers, tough guys that quit. And it wasn't because of anything else. It was because of the cold. And then oddly enough, you'll see some of those guys do make it. I'm not saying all those Olympic athletes, professional athletes don't make it, but a lot of them don't make it. But then you'll see like some random dude who you would think is like a used car salesman or something make it through. It's the oddest thing. And so there's no like rhyme or reason to any of it. And they've employed all these smart people trying to figure out what makes us tick, and they can't figure it out because, you know, if we found out data saying that like, oh, wrestlers make it more often or this or that, obviously the Navy would be like, okay, we're just gonna pick these people, but no one can figure it out.
Yeah, that was my next question. That was like my next question, my follow up. Like, what what make a what is the blueprint to be a Navy SEAL? You know, what do you need to have? And now that you basically answer my question, there is no yes or wrong answer. It's just basically a what do you have inside of you, and that's not in any shape or way or form measurable. You cannot put a number on it. You know what I mean? If you like you say, if you can put a number on it, or they are Navy probably be targeting those people to recruit them, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
It is crazy, man. It just so you spend 5 days, 5.5 days doing that over and over.
Yeah, we get 4 hours of sleep on Wednesday, and the reason they give you
That's like a
4 hours
blink.
of sleep, which actually almost makes it worse. But I guess the reason they give you 4 hours, 'cause I have no idea how they figure this out. But if you don't give them 4 hours of sleep, people die after
Yeah,
5.5 days.
I,
So I
I
have no
heard
idea
that.
how they figured that data out. But
Yeah, I heard that before. Like I had Kawa Malai last time here, and he told me the same thing. He was hallucinating. He was seeing soda can, like a Dr. Pepper, whatever, dancing. He's like, who put that in there? And then he told me about another guy was chasing a chicken around, running around, like, hey guys, help me out. Cut the chicken, we're gonna eat it. And he was just running around, and it's crazy how your mind play tricks, and your experience on being literally kind of like a out of body experience. You don't feel like you're in your body and something's pushing you. It's just like it's weird. It's
yeah, and that's why it'd be cool to talk to like a buds instructor because I don't know all like what they go through. And but I guess like after Wednesday, they don't. There's no more high risk events after that. It's very mundane and it's very very structured because we're like a danger to ourselves.
okay.
So like after Wednesday, it's not really high speed at all. It's very very mundane stuff.
Yeah. I have one question for you. Now that you mentioned psychedelics and treatments, uh, I was looking at the Sean Ryan show. He was doing the interview to this guy, special forces guy, running, and they were talking about psychedelics and how that helped him to go through his PTSD and all that stuff and depression. And I was in vacation in Mexico, and I talked to a guy. I just struck a conversation with him, and he told me what the place was, where they conduct the place for the psychedelics with the frogs and all that stuff. And I thought at the beginning Sean Ryan was bullshit until I talked to a Mexican guy. He's like, "That's a real shit." People, it's like he said he done it, and he told me it's like you dying. You feel like you're dying, and you going through a dimensional like wormhole in life, and that's like. But my question is for you: have you ever done that, or think about doing it? That kind of treatment, because
No, I mean
seems interesting, but I don't want to die
I
though.
guess I think it should be legal at the very least. I think
Right?
all the laws need to be loosened up so they can actually do the research. I don't think there's enough research on it for long term. So I'm never gonna do it until there's like long term studies. But I'm more like in the meditation and like Buddhism side of it, and like my mentality is like you can achieve a lot of the stuff that they're doing through meditation and Buddhism. And I think if you take some of that stuff, psychedelics, it's almost like taking someone who's done no training and putting them on top of Mount Everest, like that. And some people may not be ready for it. Whereas with Buddhism, like you're doing a whole training cycle, like meditation, years and years, and you can achieve what they're achieving. I'm not saying I've achieved like what they have, but by going to the mountaintop yet. But I haven't seen any long term studies on it. I've seen guys, yeah, Sean Ryan, I have buddies do it, they take it and they feel good now. But like, what's going to happen in 10 years? I literally have no idea, and that's the piece of it that I don't know about. And right now, I'm in a good spot. I mean, I quit drinking alcohol almost like 500 days ago, and I do the meditation. I do counseling twice a week. I do a single session, then I do a group session with veterans on BetterHelp, which is a great app. It's expensive, but it's way better than the VA, and I do that. And then the farming is like my therapy too. Like the farming that's actually been proven scientifically like long term with horticulture therapy. And you can actually see it even in like prisons where they'll put farms in there and the violence goes like way down and people are better. So I think all those things for me I'm doing good. I'm a good dad. Me and my wife are together. And so for me, I don't really have a need to do it right now. I mean, maybe down the road, like long-term studies come out, but even then, I'm doing good now, and that's what works for me. I don't take any medication from the VA, and so yeah, just that's what I do.
Yeah, me neither. I ditch all my medications. They give me a bunch of shit, and just my wife told me one day, like, he grabbed my bag. I have them all in a Ziploc bag. It used to be like 10 little bottles, and my wife said, "You don't take this shit no more."
Yeah,
It kind of, I didn't see it, but she told me it changed you from within. You know what I mean? You're not the same guy. So I didn't recognize it, but she did, and she dumped it all. And
well, I will say this though, like keep this legal too. Like anyone listening to this, like if you're gonna go off medication, you really need to go through like psychiatrists and do it. And that's what I did because some of these medications, I do think they are bad for people, but if you do it too abruptly,
oh yeah,
sometimes you need to like wean yourself off. And I went through the proper way of going off it. Like my psychiatrist very much knew I was going off of it, and I told him everything I was doing. So I tend to agree with you, but like you have to do it in a timely manner and like the right order because you can't just some of these medications like the way they work with serotonin, like it like basically like replaces the serotonin, and your body probably wasn't making enough of it to begin with, and this medication's making it, and you go off of it, all of a sudden now you have like no serotonin or whatever chemicals it's making, and you go into a bad spell. Because I had a buddy of mine commit suicide last July, and I think that was part of it. He got mixed up with his medication, didn't get his medication. His name was Jason Slumber. He's a childhood friend. He's a Marine, but he was moving, and his medication got mixed up, got sent to a different place. He didn't get it, and he went off of it abruptly. And then combination with 4th of July, it was just a perfect storm, and he committed suicide. But yeah, I think for some people it's worth a try, but definitely talk to a psychiatrist and do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes people need to maybe even go to inpatient treatment to do it. And some people will do that. So maybe if you're going to go that route, if you can go off medication, at least try it in an inpatient treatment. So if something goes awry, like you got people there. So
yeah, you gotta be careful with that. So yeah, it's you have to be in the proper setting to do it. Yeah,
it can be bad.
Yeah, it could be very bad. But tell me about your experience in the SEAL. What kind of and what was your SEAL team? You were in SEAL Team 2, I believe.
Yeah, so I went to SEAL Team 2. So prior to that, I went through BUDS, SQT, and then back then we had SEAL source ratings. So I was actually a hospital corpsman. So I had to like go to the hospital corpsman A school. Did all that, went to BUDS, SQT, became a SEAL. But because I was a corpsman, I had to go to Fort Bragg, actually. I guess they call it Fort Liberty now. But I had to go there for 7 months to do all my combat training. So I was training with Rangers and Green Berets. And then I went to SEAL Team 2.
Nice.
Yeah.
From the SEAL Team 2, how long? You were there for 8 years, I believe you served, 10 years?
I did 11 years total. So I was either in training or a SEAL for 11 years. But,
nice.
But the SEAL pipeline, it's a long pipeline.
It's a long, how long it was?
I think I worked out the other day. I don't know, like, so from the time I signed up to my first deployment, it was 3 years. So it's
holy shit.
It's a lot of training, yeah.
Fuck. Yeah. I mean, you win the medic route. That's usually longer.
Well, that was part of it too.
Yeah.
That was an extra 7 months.
Yeah. Same.
But still, I would say like the average SEAL is pushing 3 to 4 years because I mean, even when you show up to your SEAL team,
you're green, but you still.
It's a 1.5 year workup because every single team does. Now it's a little bit different. Now everything I think is more, the same, but each team does stuff a little bit differently. So you have to do 1.5 year workup after becoming a SEAL with your SEAL team and learn how they do it. So it's a lot of training.
Yeah. Shit. Really. So now you're in the SEAL team. What other trainings do you have? I know you have sniper. Where do you went to for sniper school?
So I was actually grandfathered in as a sniper. My first.
Oh, you were grandfathering?
Well, my first deployment as a new guy, they needed snipers, and so I went to the. Have you heard of McMillan sniper rifles?
Yeah,
everyone knows those. Well, the grandson of the owner, he was actually in my platoon, And so we were grandfathered in. They needed snipers, but they couldn't send us to the NSW, the Naval Special Warfare School. So I was grandfathered in. So I was taught by NSW qualified snipers in my platoon, and then we used the McMillan Sniper School as our training. So my first deployment, I was actually operating as a sniper. But after that deployment, I eventually went to the Naval Special Warfare in Atterbury, Indiana, to the official one.
Mm-hmm.
But I deployed as an unofficial sniper my first deployment, and like was operating as a sniper. My first deployment, yeah.
So now tell me just a little bit. What was like hitting the team for the first time after so many like almost 2 years of training up? What was the welcoming from the team once you got there?
Oh, I was scared shitless because I knew about the hazing, and they do not. I guess it's different for every platoon,
Mm-hmm.
but I was not welcomed at all. Like we were treated like shit,
Really?
like new guys. I mean, I got hazed like very, very badly. Like I got choked out back to back, stripped naked. They like put spray glue all over me. I mean, I had a bad hazing. So,
Wow.
but that was part of because I fought back. So I'll back up. So, long story short is, as a new guy, you're always fucking up, doing something stupid. But I pissed off my team leader. His actually named Eddie Penny. He's like famous now, but he was my team leader. I pissed him off. We were supposed to do an inventory of the weapons because he was in charge of me and I was like a secondary under him. And I told him all the weapons. He said all the weapons were up. And I in front of everyone, I was like, no, we're not up on the weapons. We're actually down one weapon. Wound up being our chief and wasn't that big of a deal. And we figured it out. But he got pissed because he told our senior chief that all the weapons were up, but they weren't. And so I made him look bad in front of everyone. And that night, we went out to the bar, and we got drunk. And then they put me into we used to cruise around in Navy vans, like the big 18-passenger government vans. And we're coming back to base, and they started hazing me in the back of the vehicle. And I had this bright idea. I'm like, they can't haze me out in town if I jump out of the vehicle. So I took the seatbelt and I wrapped it around the driver's neck to try to stop the vehicle. And he was, which is a terrible idea. And from there, I started just getting my ass beat. I was holding my own because I was a decent wrestler. But then in the way back, the sister platoon chief, he was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, which is back then, that's a big deal now, but back then that was a big deal to have a purple belt. And he started just wrecking me and stopped that real fast. Get back to base, and I got my ass beat. Like it was basically like a gang beating. Like the next day I couldn't walk because they kicked me in the legs. And it was bad. So like that was my welcoming, but I fought back so much that I wasn't hazed after that. Like the senior chief was like, Sean is left alone, because usually you kind of get hazed a little bit here and there, but that was maybe halfway through the platoon, and I didn't get hazed at all after that. And I think they were kind of secretly impressed that I fought back because
Yeah.
no one else generally fights back like I did.
Wow. That's crazy. I never heard about. I heard about hazing, but not at that level that you're trying to choke in the driver and fight back. Yeah, I believe some people don't fight back because they don't want to get like single out or kicked out, or I don't know. But
For me, it didn't feel like I had control over it. It was like just my instinct. It was like my
It's
instinct,
just-
like to fight back, because I think especially like I hadn't started doing jiu-jitsu even, like, but as a wrestler, like you don't want to be like on your back. And so I was like, I don't know, it was like in me to fight back.
kind of instinct.
I had no control. I feel like I didn't have control of my, I was just like, I'm fighting back. That's what's happening.
Yeah, no matter what, fighting back. That's a good spirit though. That's a good spirit to have. That's a good attitude.
Yeah, I guess.
So you spent 10 years total, 11 years total with the team. What deployments do you have under your belt? Like where do you went?
So my first deployment, 4 of us at the last second had to go to South America. We were helping out fighting the FARC, which is an acronym in Spanish, but it's like basically the South American terrorist group that runs like cocaine and all that, and kind of runs all that in South America. So we were doing training down in Cartagena, Colombia, and then Asocio in Paraguay. It was just 4 of us. The rest of the whole, we had 2 platoons, 16 guys. We combined into a troop, and most of them went to Baghdad right off the bat. But then, so I did I guess maybe 3 months down in South America, and then we ripped over to Baghdad. So the first 3 months, kind of didn't even want to be there. In hindsight, it was a cool experience though, because I wanted to go straight to a combat zone. But it was a cool experience. We were just training and recruiting locals, uh, basically doing the classic Green Beret mission for internal defense
Yeah.
to train them. It wasn't a combat deployment, but we actually did get spun up to be a QRF, a quick reaction force, for a tier 1 asset, because there at the time there were some CIA folks that were being held captive down there, and so I guess they were going to do a hostage rescue, and they wanted us as the QRF. That never happened while we were there. The CIA agents, I believe they were officers. I believe they actually went to the farm. So I think, like right after our deployment, they actually did get rescued, but that was kind of cool. I had to get like geared up for that.
Get it up.
But nothing ultimately happened to that. But prior to us getting there was a Green Beret that was drugged by a FARC prostitute, and he went to a bar, thought he was gonna get lucky with this girl, and she drugged him, put like roofies in his drink, and then he woke up in his hotel room, and the guy, I don't know why, but he had like I guess we call it sipper laptops, like a top secret laptop basically with information that got stolen, and he had money stolen out of his hotel room. And so the whole time we were allowed to go out in town, but we were always like looking behind us, because like if that happened, they were probably like
Targeting.
stalking him prior to that happening. So we were always kind of on edge. So it wasn't a combat deployment, but I didn't feel safe there. I mean, and we were staying in a hotel like out in town.
Yep.
And so like I never felt safe there. But then we ripped over to Baghdad. We were supposed to do basically like acting like the Secret Service for the new Iraqi regime. So they had, prior to us getting there, they had a big elections. They had a new regime there, but some of the insurgents and loyalists to part of the Ba'ath Party that were loyal to Saddam didn't want them in there, and so we were basically acting as a Secret Service. But by the time I got there, they had turned it over to the Iraqis. So the Iraqis were acting as the Secret Service. So we had like a 2-week period where we're basically doing nothing. But then we started doing sniper missions. So that kind of wound up being awesome, because I was now a quote unquote sniper in my first deployment, and that was wild, because this is downtown Baghdad, extremely urban. So you're not doing any kind of rural sniper hide. You're not putting on ghillie suits or any of that. You have to like, so our only option was to go into people's houses.
Kicking doors.
Yeah. So what we would do is we put Army uniforms on, because the Army and Marines were already doing presence patrols all around the area anyway, in Humvees, Abram tanks and all that. And so days prior to us doing sniper missions, we'd figure out where all the bad IED areas are at, working with intel folks, come up with a plan, and then start going the presence patrols and just start filming, secretly filming around neighborhoods, and then try to find different houses. And then we'd use satellite imagery to figure out, okay, that house looks good. Can we actually see the vantage point of where we need to go? So we do that days prior. And then 1 a.m. in the morning, we would just literally break into people's houses. We'd have an interpreter. It's very bizarre, but they would knock on the door, because I guess maybe it's a Fourth Amendment thing. I don't know. We couldn't just break into the house, because some of the families are actually nice families. Some of them, yeah, as you know, like Iraq, a lot of Iraqis hated Saddam, so some of them were happy we were there. And some of them were Christian, so they definitely liked us. But we would knock on the door, and the interpreter would tell them like, "Hey, we're taking over your house." So we'd have the interpreter do that, and then I guess there was maybe 6 of us, one sniper, and then other SEALs go into the house and just take over the house and hold the family hostage, and then make a sniper hide upstairs and just overlook the whole area for 24 hours and wait for someone to plant an IED. My sniper hide, we never saw anyone plant an IED. No, well, we did. We had one, but it was down the road, but we couldn't make the shot, so we called in EOD, and they dealt with it. But some of the other sniper hides, they killed a few folks, but I never got any shots off while in the sniper hide. But that was the most heavily IED area in all of Iraq. And once we were there, it just stopped abruptly. Part of it was us doing our work. I think the word got out, but also the army put up signs saying that there was special forces or snipers in the area, and so they stopped. But that was bizarre because with some of the families were Muslim, and I think even the Christian ones, I think it's part of like Arab culture. Even if like you're the enemy, they still serve you. So we would sit there with like a sniper rifle all set up in a sniper hide, and you'd have families giving you tea,
Yeah.
cookies, and it was like bizarre thing. I'm sitting here like literally on a couch like this sometimes.
Easily.
Some of the houses with my gun set up, maybe whatever they had, maybe I don't know, a box, whatever they had, and just sitting there overlooking it, drinking tea, like waiting for someone to plant an IED.
That's crazy.
It was bizarre.
Very surreal. Very surreal.
Yeah. Talking about it, it seems like a movie. At the time, it kind of felt normal. It felt like I was destined to be a Navy SEAL and all that. So at the time, but now that it does feel bizarre thinking about it.
In your time, in your time in the SEALs and deployments, do you cross path with your half brother, Mike?
No, he was at Team 4, so we were actually in opposite schedules. But when I first moved there to Virginia Beach from Fort Bragg, I lived at their house for a year. So I was living with my brother for a year. He wasn't home very much, and neither was I. But that's when. So we didn't grow up together. I had some interactions with him, obviously, when he was in the Leapfrogs and talking to him. But once I got in the SEAL teams, we got real close. And I lived with him. And so, but on deployments, I never crossed paths with him. But
Yeah, I got a few questions regarding. We probably jump into that right now. I was looking to your Instagram, and you were mentioning something about the genetics between twin brothers and stuff like that you were talking about. Kind of interesting on that, and I would like you to expand and give me your theory on it. Like, if you have a twin or relative close to you, and the rate to success or whatever they're going to be in life is just determined by genetics. It's something that you on that line that you were talking about. Can you expand on that? Because I'm kind of like, I look at the video and it's like that's very deep, and I like, because sometimes people think everything is just like random and casual, and sometimes I'm just taking the opposite way. It's meant to be, or is determined to be that way. Can you expand on that?
yeah, I mean, it's like a classic debate, nature versus nurture. But the short answer is who you're going to be is both. It's some of your genetics and some of your environmental factors, like how you're, growing up. But no, they've done these studies, and I have no idea how identical twins get separated, but they do. So identical twins have, the same genes and the same womb. So they have, even in the very beginning, they have the same genetics, the same environmental factors essentially going on. And however it happens, they're separated for their entire lives, and geneticists find these people and they start doing research on them, and you find like these amazing things, like they're in the same career sometimes, or like if they're gay or something, like both are gay. Like if they have like the same mannerisms, like odd things, like they both like the same types of foods, and they've been like separated at birth their entire lives. So that tells you that there's some genetic factors of who you're going to be, but there's definitely environmental factors too. I don't know if they got into the weeds of it with these studies of where they have, really, really bad childhoods after that. But I imagine if we were to do that in a more scientific way, it'd be completely unethical. But if you were to take them apart, put them in a really bad childhood, alcoholics, maybe they wouldn't turn out as well. But anecdotally, I've seen in the SEAL teams that there's lots of brothers. So there's some kind of, and not identical brothers with me and my brother, but there's Marcus Luttrell.
Yeah.
He's an identical twin, and they're both Navy SEALs.
Yep.
So like, I guess what I believe is, I believe like who you're going to be, like the maximum of who you're going to be is set at birth. Like I think Michael Jordan was basically, he was born, but he had a good enough childhood where he became a basketball player. But I imagine if you were to clone Michael Jordan and then put him in a really bad environment, he probably wouldn't become a basketball player. You could probably create environmental conditions. So the short answer is it's both.
It's both. Okay.
It's definitely both. But the thing is, some of it's like irrelevant to even think about because you'll never know what your potential is until you try. So like
Right.
I mean, you maybe want to become a Navy SEAL, and maybe your genes will not allow you to become a Navy SEAL for whatever reason, but you'll never know until you try. So it's like, just try, and if you don't make it, you don't make it. And, I know one guy. He actually wanted to go into SEAL Team 6, but he tried out for buds, quit, went to the fleet in the Navy, came back, became a Navy SEAL, and then went on to SEAL Team 6. So if people are listening to it and you're like thinking, oh, I'm destined to do this and that, like that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there is genetic factors, and just try. If you don't make it, you don't make it. And especially if Navy SEAL. I mean, maybe like it'd be different if you're like intellectually behind and like maybe don't spend $100,000 to go to college, become an engineer. If you know that, I don't know if you want to go into debt, but like in the Navy, there's really I don't see a downside of not making it. Because if you try to be a Navy SEAL and you don't make it, you're still in a good spot. You're still in the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get out after maybe 4 years. You'll have a college degree, and you'll have a cool experience the rest of your life. And so, like, just try to do it. And if you're not meant to be a Navy SEAL, who cares? You're still in a good spot. You're not going to like walk away with debt. You're going to walk away with college fund. So,
That's true. Yeah, it is true. It is like for me it was like I kind of like determined my path. Like I wanted to be a soldier since I was a little kid, but it is just a combination of both. It's like environmental factors and your desire to do whatever you want. Um, One question that I have for you is about your farm. How was your transition from a Navy SEAL to a farmer? How was that?
yeah, I have like a lot of like out of body experiences in my life. Like when I got out, like that was a weird one because I don't even know how I got into farming, and like I tried to articulate it, but
Mm-hmm.
I became like a prepper.
That
Like when I got out, and like the only analogy I can make is like if you ever like look at a beaver in captivity, it's kind of bizarre. If you take a beaver that's been in the wild or it's not in the wild and it's born in captivity, no matter what you do, if you put it like in a house and you're just trying to like rehabilitate this beaver, it'll just start building dams like for no reason. It'll like there's no running water. It'll just take stuff in your house and just do it and make a dam. And like that's kind of how I felt. Like I just felt like this was like my calling, and like I've been getting into religion. Like it sounds like that's kind of like what like Noah had in his mind. He was like, I'm just gonna build this boat. I don't even know why I'm building the boat, and that's kind of what it was. I literally just got into farming like that. It was like this calling. It's like I'm gonna become a farmer, and then it became very very strange when I started going to school, started using the Chapter 31 GI Bill, the voc rehab, and part of that I had to do volunteer work. And it just so happened I moved to Tucson because that's where my family had lived at the time. They moved from Philadelphia out there. My dad had cancer, pancreatic cancer, so I went to help out with them. So I started going to school in Tucson at the University of Arizona, and started volunteering. And I was trying to find farms to look at, to volunteer at, and the local one was called Sleeping Frog Farms, which I was like, that's kind of strange because Navy SEALs are known as frogmen. And I was getting out and I felt like I'm sort of like a sleeping frog, like retired. I'm like, that's kind of strange. I didn't think much of it. I'm like, I didn't think of it as like biblical or like godlike or anything. But then the strangest fucking thing, as I was driving to the farm, it was about maybe 45 minutes away. There's a big sign. I think like they use it for helicopters or when they're doing like land assessments, but they put big numbers up, like numbers that are as tall as me. And so when they're flying over, they can see them and they're at an angle. And as I'm pulling into the farm, one says 246. And my bud's class was 246. I'm going to Sleeping Frog Farms. And I was like, that's an odd coincidence. And I wouldn't say I believed in God. Like I've been agnostic, I guess, my whole life. At that point, I didn't really believe in God at that point. But like when I start putting stories like that into a big, big story, it's like there's a lot of weird shit happening. Like, what are the odds of all that? Sleeping frog, being a frogman, and like that's the only farm I go to, and then 246. I'm like, so yeah, it felt getting out was difficult, but the farming, it just felt right. It just felt like that's what I was supposed to do. They were my people, and I excelled at it. I knew nothing, and I went to school for it. I graduated with the highest honors, 4.0 in all my classes that I needed. I excelled at it. So it was difficult, but the farming and the school and the community of being around farmers helped everything a lot. And just the schedule of a farmer, for me, it worked really well too, because especially as a Navy SEAL, sometimes it's a lot of like, you sort of have some downtime, quite a bit of downtime, and then like hardcore work. And like farming a lot of times is like that. Like you have a slower schedule, and then you have like go balls to the walls and harvest everything because it's going to rain in 2 days. You got to do it. And so I think the schedule of it worked good. And then I've always been kind of a nerd anyway. Everyone always knew me as like this like tough guy, but I enjoy science. And so I did research as well. Did research on potatoes, pecans, climate change research for the USDA. So it was awesome, but it was definitely a transition. I think the hardest transition was dealing with non-SEALs, because SEALs are so motivated, just want to get things done. And some people in the college system are not like that at all. And so it was difficult. I mean, I guess I kind of like lower my standards a bit, which is because Navy SEALs they want to do everything perfectly and they want to get it all done, all at once. And I mean, farmers are definitely perfectionists, but like, I mean, I wasn't dealing with in many ways at the college level true farmers, because like it was a college farm, so really they didn't need to make money, and so they could work like a 40-hour work week and get away with it. And so now farmers who like own their own land, that's a whole different story. Those guys are more like Navy SEALs than I think anyone on the planet, like the way they have to get things done. But at the college level, it's not as motivated to get things done, and that's why I ultimately didn't get into like becoming a professor or anything, because I was kind of going that route, and because I eventually got into a PhD program, and usually the progression for a person like me getting into a PhD would be to do research and become a professor, and I really didn't want to do that. And so after I graduated from Fresno State, we moved back to Arizona, and got in the PhD program, quit that, and that's when I started my nonprofit during COVID. It was the worst time. Dissolved that because I didn't like asking for money for people, and then eventually bought 13 acres and started like a U-pick style farm.
Okay.
But now that's being used by it's a group called Contingency Group. It's owned by Mike Glover. He's a former Navy SEAL or former Green Beret. So he has a group of guys. So they manage that property for me, and then we moved to here in Texas. And I got 24 acres out here. But yeah, the transition, it was hard, but I kept busy during the whole time. So it was good.
Yeah, it is. So, are you growing something now? You growing something in your farm right now? You working on planting potatoes or?
Yes. So
Or
so the property was used for oil drilling. We talked about before the podcast.
Yeah.
I got most of the trees down. I got a nice area to plant, so I'm gonna be making rows this week. I finally bought about a year and a half ago, so I'm making rows today, or probably tomorrow rather. Actually Sunday. But yeah, putting rows in, then planting potatoes come up soon. After that, we're doing sweet corn, sweet potatoes, some watermelon, tobacco seeds as well for flowers, and making cigars and all that kind of stuff, and bonsai trees too. So my farm, I'm gonna have a bunch of different stuff there to have lots of different revenue of money. And so right now I have nothing in the ground right now other than growing pastures for livestock.
Mm-hmm.
So 20 acres will be for livestock. So I've got those seeds in the ground growing pastures, but the other 5 acres, I don't have anything in the ground right now, but got big plans for it. But some of the stuff it takes a while to do because I have to do a lot of research with Texas A&M. Not so much for the annual crops, like stuff that grows for 90 days, 120 days. Because if that fails, it's not a big deal. But when you're buying permanent crops like pecans or grapes that'll be around for 100 years, you really got to do your research. So I'm working with Texas A&M right now to identify the best varieties to pick because if you're spending $5,000 on grapes and you find out 10 years from now that they die, so that's going to probably this year I probably won't put any permanent crops in because it's just too much research for me while doing everything else and raising a family. But this year, definitely some annual crops put in
Nice.
the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, pecans. I like pecans. The ones that get the sugar on top. Man, I love those.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time they sell them around here, especially in Montgomery, they got the independent farmers selling pecans. I always grab a bag or two because I don't love pecans. Either to make muffins or something like that I like to do.
Yeah, I'm choosing them too because it's actually most crops that we eat. I would say probably 95% of everything you eat is actually domesticated, meaning it literally could not exist without human cultivation. But pecans are actually native here, and so it's a lot less work for me because if it's native, I don't. I mean, I'm gonna definitely do some things to make it better. But pecans are nice because they always produce.
They always
Yeah,
they
sometimes you'll get alternate bearing years, like where one year they won't. But as a prepper, uh, I'm trying to make I'm balancing like making money on the farm, but also being a prepper too. And as a prepper, like it goes back to like having this thing in me, like of just doing it. For some reason, I just think supply chains are going to shut down at some point. And so if supply chains shut down, getting all the fancy stuff like fertilizers and all this stuff may not happen. It could be a month, it could be 2 years. I don't know how long it's going to last, but certain crops like corn, you're not really going to be growing a corn crop without fertilizers. And if things happen in Russia, for instance, with natural gas supply chains being disrupted, you're going to have a hard time getting nitrogen fertilizers,
yeah.
which we saw a little bit during COVID. And so, some of the crops I pick are to make money in the short term, but some of the long term crops are for prepping in mind, and specifically supply chain shutdowns. And so I try to. I'm never going to fully achieve that, but my mindset is like I need to have a farm that's set up where it's like if I could not leave the farm, how long could I survive on it? Calorically with food and water, and so, but also at the same time, I also plan for good times too, and so I want to make some money in the short term. So some of it, like bonsai trees, I'm going to be growing. That has nothing to do with survival. It's about making money because people love bonsai trees, and
Yeah.
I like doing it myself, and so I can sell them. Watermelon, probably not the best survival crop, but people love them. People will come to pick them up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but the potatoes are definitely that's like a prepper's food. Like
Yep.
if you're like want to produce the most amount of calories per acre and feed like a small army, militia, or whatever, you're gonna want to pick corn, potatoes, and wheat. And so the potatoes are a very forgiving crop too, as long as they're not like too wet. So they're definitely that's a survival crop. But tobacco, not a survival crop, but it could keep morale up. I don't know.
It's nice to have, yeah.
I mean, sometimes like it's kind of nice. If you ever chewed on a tobacco leaf, it's kind of nice actually. I mean, like just a raw one. I quit tobacco. Well, I haven't quit, but I don't do as much as I used to. But it's kind of relaxing sometimes if you get a little chewing tobacco and just chew on it.
Oh yeah. Those are nice. And the smells.
Yeah,
It smells good. I like the smells of tobacco. Now that we're talking about prepping, kind of like everybody nowadays, like military folks are mostly preppers. Most of what I've seen is preppers. Most of the guys, they like to be prepared. For example, they like to have either guns and ammo, food storage at the house. In your mind, whether how this gonna play out, and let's say in a futuristic setting, whether we're gonna get hit by cyber attack, or it's gonna be different countries decided all of a sudden we're not supplying the U.S. anymore. We're not selling our products to the U.S. How this gonna play out? in in theory, are we gonna get attacked? Or are we gonna get inside attack? Because I got my theories, but I would like to hear yours.
Well, I don't believe in like 100% like fate, so I don't think the future is set in stone. So I can't tell you what's going to happen. But I do know supply chains will 1000% at some point in human history or human future shut down for some reason. Like that's it's going to happen tomorrow or 1,000 years from now. I don't know, but it's going to happen. So I don't know when, but specifically what I prep for is supply chain shutdowns, and that can happen any number of ways. I mean, look at natural disasters. That can happen. That happens sort of small scale from time to time, locally, like with hurricanes. Sometimes like a power goes out, and now they can't power your HEB, and now they can't put food in there. And HEB only has enough food maybe for 5-6 days, so that can happen small scale. So likelihood of that happening for 5-7 days, that's very very high in the next 25 years. This last hurricane. Luckily, I had cash, so it didn't really affect me. All the power was up in my neighborhood, but so the people with credit cards couldn't actually buy stuff locally. They had to like go somewhere else. But I had cash, so that's sort of a small supply chain shutdown. So that's natural disasters, but a big global one that could definitely happen is a solar storm. So there's one that happened. It's called the Carrington event. Happened in 1856, but it's basically just send a bunch of high-powered particles and waves from the sun, and it wiped out all the telegraph wires. At the time, telegraph wires were fairly important, but they weren't like a huge infrastructure, so it didn't really affect supply chains that much. But I mean, it was a big event. Telegraph wires caught on fire. There was local fires in the community. But if that happened today, all the satellites, all the infrastructure, it's basically a ginormous EMP. Like, kind of what you hear about EMPs where they put nuclear weapons over top of a country and they explode it, takes out all the electronics. That's what this is from the sun. The sun is a nuclear reactor. And so if that happened today, we'd be royally fucked.
Yeah,
And so there's that. And then there's the human side of it. So there's hurricanes, tornadoes not so much, but natural disasters that could happen. I guess natural stuff. I could have a bad virus that could, that's sort of natural. Now that's sort of in question now.
Oh yeah,
But even without human tinkering, viruses wipe out species all the time. So even without all the tinkering, that's a natural disaster right there, and that can shut down supply chains. But like more on the human side, hacking too. I mean, if I was China, if I was gonna attack America, I would hack all of our electronics first. I would cut off all the banking. I would make sure all the soldiers aren't getting paid, and they can totally do that. I mean, all these computers and everything. We used to have these secret computers, in the military, but they're all made in China. There has to be back doors in there. That's definitely feasible. And then just software glitches, like that's happened before. There was a software glitch where they updated their system, some company, and you couldn't get into certain banks. That happened to me actually. It was only for a day or two, but like I remember I couldn't get into my Vanguard like investment account, so I couldn't do any like trading that day. But like I could still get into my Chase account. But like that was a glitch. But I mean that could totally be man-made or just a bad glitch. And if that happened, that would totally shut all the supply chains down. Because if you have no electronics, no money system, soldiers aren't getting paid, and then you have an attack at the same time, like. So I mean that could happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's supply. I mean, I don't think we should have supply chains. We should have like supply webs. But we have like all these like supply chains, and if anything breaks into it, you're not getting what you need. And we saw that during COVID. There's some of them you can't even predict, but like there was one that no one really saw, but there was all the chip manufacturing was done in like Taiwan, and we couldn't get chips, which started cutting down supply chains. And if that persisted for 5 years, there'd be like no new cars because all the cars have chips, all the tractors all have chips,
Phones,
everything,
computer. Yeah, we'd be. Yeah,
we'd be screwed. And so that's like one thing where I don't agree with Trump. Like I agree with like the idea of a tariff, but we need to start making things here because we're so reliant on the rest of the world, and we've created these supply chains, which is where we should have supply webs. Where like we should not live in a world where like one factory making chips goes down. We're like, oh, we're all fucked, or like, oh, there's only like maybe a handful of places making nitrogen fertilizer that goes down. We're all fucked. Like it should not be that way. We should have a lot of different places doing that. But the reason we have that is because we're so overregulated in this country that manufacturers just go overseas.
Right.
And then a lot of those countries are communists. So it's basically you're dealing with one company. And so I understand the idea with tariffs. He's trying to bring back jobs here, and that may work. But in my opinion, he should talk to manufacturers and be like, hey, why are you going to China? Why are you going to Ukraine? Why are you going to other places to like get all your stuff and make your stuff? Why are you going to Japan? Talk to them and be like, this is why. And be like, and then make those conditions here. Make those conditions here, like where we have like, I call them like economic free zones because that's what they have in communist China. It's kind of funny. Communist China is more capitalist than we are, and that's because they have these economic free zones where it's easy to make a company there. And I think if you want to prevent supply chain shutdowns, that's what we need to do. We need to bring back jobs here, and I don't think it's through tariffs. I think it's through deregulation.
Yeah.
And make it easy to open it. I mean, if you want to open, I love John Stossel, but he did this special where he tried to open a legitimate lemonade stand, the classic lemonade stand. In America, it takes about like 9 months to a year to make a legitimate lemonade stand because you have to do like food safety courses, permits, this and that.
Oh.
But in China, like 24 hours. 24 hours to make a lemonade stand. And so like no one's really addressing that. And like that's why I've actually never voted, which is very libertarian of me. A lot of libertarians don't vote. But I think Trump is definitely better than Kamala Harris, but I think he should probably start listening to some of the libertarians and maybe start easing up on our regulations. And maybe he doesn't do it on a grand scale all across the United States, but maybe he takes some public land, sells it off, and makes like little economic free zones. So maybe like instead of saying, hey, New York City is now an economic free zone, maybe we sell off some of the federal land that we have and be like, hey, manufacturers, you can build everything you want here, and these are your conditions. So it can like kind of start from scratch, which I think would be a step in the right direction. But yeah, answer your question about like prepping. I don't think anything's going to happen in my lifetime, so I just prepare for supply chain shutdowns. And so I try to be as self-reliant as possible.
Yeah, that's a good mindset. Me, I'm the same way. I'm most worried about like terrorist attack from within. That's all. Like terrorists just kind of shoot out a shopping mall or something like that. They might happen, but like I'm agree with you on in regards of deregulations of how to make a company, and also and how to bring those critical companies to the United States instead of relying on somebody else. And I think it was Vivek Ramaswamy. He was talking about that, bringing chip manufacturers here in the United States instead of relying on somebody else, and just make concessions on how to do it. And I guarantee you, there's a lot of companies willing to do it, but they just need the regulations. They need the government basically stay out of their way and let them build those plants. And I think chips. What is the other one? Fertilizer that you talked about. They need to be done here instead of being rely on basically our enemies, Russia and not Taiwan, but China is talking about invading Taiwan and expanding their territories. But it is a risk that we have to mitigate by bringing those companies back to the U.S. and make them here. And if it's something happen, we just have it here. We don't have to buy from somebody else. But I would like to talk about your book that you are drafting right now. You're making your book. What is your book? It's all about
just my life. It started off with me doing counseling and then like wanting me to write. And I was like, you know what? I'm like, there was days where I use speech to text, so I get a lot of words in fast. And I was like, I'm doing all this stuff So I'm like quote unquote writing, and I'm getting like sometimes 10,000 words in a day. I'm like, and some of this stuff I'm like may help other people, may empower them to talk about stuff. And so I figured I'd just turn it into a book. And like that was like December 5th of 2024. And what's today's date? February 7th. I've got like over 100,000 words. And so I figured I might as well just turn it into a book. So it was more about just healing for myself. And now it's definitely about that, but it's to empower other people to do the same and promote the therapy and just getting help. And what sparked it too is the reason I got into like hardcore counseling and was like doing it all the time was my brother committed suicide. So my brother Mike Day, he wrote Perfectly Wounded. So he wrote a book. So that's part of inspiration too. And then obviously a lot of Navy SEALs write books, but I was in a bad spot after he committed suicide and needed help. Got all the help I needed, but the writing really, really helped. And yeah, so now I got 100,000 words down. I got my second draft done. Should have my third draft done the next month. The third draft is more just taking out all the names because I want to put people's names in there. And I'm not going through any kind of official channel, so I got to really be cognizant of places, names, and dates. Most of the dates aren't that big of a deal now because most of what Navy SEALs do is secret before you do it. After you do it, it's not that fancy. A lot of it's just like what SWAT guys do. But obviously, a SWAT guy is not going to want to tell the enemy, "Hey, we're coming." So that's really the third draft. So I should have that done in the next month. But I just started the social media yesterday. There's like no followers. I basically started it for this to promote it. But it's the name of it's going to be Echoes of the Mirror, a Frogman's Tale, and it's going to be basically just my life, self-publishing, and I have to start my own publishing company, start a new LLC, more for liability reasons. That's pretty easy nowadays with LegalZoom. So I'll probably do that next couple of days, start that business, and then self-publish, so I don't have to deal with publishing companies and people telling me what I need to go put in there and this and that.
Oh yeah.
Which is it's going to be. I'm a bit nervous about doing that. So because I don't want to be like sued by someone or the military suing me. But I figured if I do get sued by the military, this is the time to do it. I think Trump wants the truth out there because some of it I'm very critical of the war and of the military and of how things are done. So I'm taking a big risk by doing it. But I feel like this is the right time to do it because it sounds like Trump wants the truth out there.
Yeah.
And so if the SEAL community tries, suing me and treating me like Eddie Gallagher or something like that, that Trump would hopefully help out with that. So I feel like this is the time to do it. But should be the self-publishing route. Should be hopefully out in the next 2-3 months. Try to put it out on all the official platforms.
Nice.
Um,
Yeah, I just had your brother's book the other day. I just got through the first chapter. I get audiobooks because that's when I do my work. I just put my headphones and I listen to it, and that's a pretty good book. But I'm looking forward to have yours. I didn't know you were writing one until I went through your Facebook and your Instagram, and I saw you were working on your book. So I was kind of interesting. Can you tell me just a portion of what it's about? Can you give me an extract of what is your book about?
kind of process everything and kind of make sense of it all. Yeah, I don't know, like what it's about. I mean, it's a auto. I mean, it's going to be an autobiography. That's what I'll classify it as.
That's nice.
I mean, it's a very selfish book. I mean, it's really about me being a better person for my kids. And so it's like really about all my family, trying to have them, maybe my kids down the road, maybe read it and understand like why I was the way I was. Sometimes like I am a little bit strict, or have my family understand me more, make me feel better so I can be a better dad. Because after I'm writing, I'm in a much better mood. Once I process it, like, because generally my flow is all right, and then I'll go do like jujitsu or Muay Thai, do some farming, and I feel way better on the days that I do all those things and writing. So that's really what it's about. As far as like excerpts from the book, I mean, I'm going to go into like all the like details of, you know, not, I mean, obviously not every single experience, but the major ones. Like, I think it was my second sniper op ever. I go into a story where I was grandfathered into the sniper, as I told you, but they made me a point man, and I was 21 years old. I was made a point man, and I jumped over a wall to make entry to the home, and it just so happened it was bad timing. But there was the mother of the house was pregnant, and she was downstairs drinking milk, and she saw me and started screaming in Arabic, "Get the AK! Get the AK!" And her husband came out, had no idea who we were, and started shooting at us, and so I had to shoot back, and so I go into like stories like that. I go into like more detail. So it's a combination of like my childhood experiences like that, like what I felt while going through it, and then also, and then writing it, having to re-experience it as a father. Because like when I had kids, that's like my PTSD got the worst because I started like reliving all this stuff now as a father. And I started asking myself like, holy shit, like what would happen if someone did that to me? Like what if like a bunch of special forces came to my house in the middle of the night with my kids? Like what are those families doing now?
Mm.
And I goes into like how having kids like really affected me. And that's when my PTSD came out the worst. When I had kids, I started hearing my kids cry, and I was like thinking a lot of times when we did sniper operations, there was a lot of kids crying, and now I'm like reliving like, what the fuck are those kids doing now? Like, do they hate America? Do they like America? Um, so yeah, so the flow of the book is just what I experienced, how I experienced it at the time, and sort of how I experience it now, and how I deal with it now, and how I reframe it to like find my own, like reinvent my own morality. Because if I try to evaluate all this stuff with a traditional morality, like I can't see myself anything but evil of what I did. But I don't think I'm evil now, but um, yeah, tackling with morality, a lot of it, and emotions, and being a father, and dealing with all that stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, once you look back and you can see yourself from a different lens. Like now you're more mature and you're older, and it's kind of like I see you. I see yourself asking the same question. I do it myself. I went to Iraq and I see kids and I gave him candy or whatever. And sometimes I'm just thinking, what that little kid doing now? And he's still alive or stuff like that go through my mind sometimes, but not as vivid as yours because you got more spirits like kicking doors down and interaction with people. Mine, when I went to Iraq, it just my interaction with people were very seldom. I mean, rarely we just talk to people. But yours, I believe, those special operation guys is more like face to face with the regular people. So
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, everyone gets affected by it in some ways. Because I mean,
yeah,
in some ways, as a SEAL, I would say it's like almost easier to deal with it than like maybe support personnel, because like at least like for us, we have all this training, and I felt like I had some control over it. But I've heard from a lot of support personnel, sometimes they get PTSD worse because they don't have all the training, and like they don't feel like they're in control, which is a whole different mentality of being in Iraq
hmm,
and not having any kind of control. And so yeah, I hate getting like these pissing contests of like, this guy did more than this, because there's like a lot of SEALs that do it. Not, I don't think as much now because they've grown up, but people like there's always grumblings of it amongst the SEAL community, like, oh, look at that guy, he's got PTSD, and like sort of laugh at him. He's like, he hasn't even seen combat, but he was in a combat zone, and um, I probably did that when I was real young, but now I definitely don't, because it affects people all in different ways, and there's no like best person in the military, because we're all support personnel. So a lot of our support we had that were non SEALs. I mean, SEALs can't be SEALs without others, support personnel. And so, um, yeah, just because you weren't kicking down doors doesn't mean you can't get PTSD and have effects from it. Sometimes it can be worse. So
yeah, it is true. Um, I don't know if you want to go to my next question. But what was your relationship with Mike? I know you guys were half brother, but once you got into the SEAL team, and you told me you got closer to your brother, you know, his story is amazing. I mean, I listened to his story way back when it started coming out in podcasts and stuff like that. Your brother went to he was with Jaco. He went to different podcasts, and he was telling his story about getting shot 27 times. And I believe you were already a SEAL when that happened.
Yeah, I was active duty. Yeah.
You were active duty. What was your first thoughts when you heard your brother got shot and basically walked out and got into the helicopter?
Well, I mean, I was like in the middle of a workout, so I didn't really have like a ton of time to process it because I got the phone call, found out he got shot, and then actually talked to him too, and he sounded fine. He told me, so this is once he got flown over to Germany and he was stabilized. He told me not to tell his wife, which I didn't, and then. But I was in the middle of a workup, so I was busy. And so I just got back from my first deployment, and I actually had to go to Fort Bragg because as a combat medic, you have to do a refresher. And so I had to go down to Fort Bragg to do that. So I didn't really have much time to process any of it. I just had to keep moving forward. My friend Clark Schwaler, we were actually in Hell Week together. He died on the operation. But I didn't even really process it. I was like, okay, Clark's dead. My brother's alive. I'm safe. My teammates are safe. Nothing I can do. I just move forward. So I never really processed it. There was no tears, none of that, which became problematic down the road. I didn't cry for like 8 years, which is crazy. But went down to Fort Bragg, did my refresher, and then once I was done there, I drove up to where was he? Bethesda, Maryland, and saw him in the hospital. And then I didn't get a lot of time to spend with him weeks after that because I was getting ready for my second deployment, and so but yeah, we got close over the years. I was over there whenever I could, and then we became like really really close because after my fifth deployment I started having some issues, and ultimately I got medically retired. But my brother, by then, that was his last deployment. So he became a wounded warrior advocate. So he was actually helping out SEALs get out of the military and get their benefits. So when he got out, you would get your VA benefits from day one. So there's no gap in the money. It was definitely reduced money because as a SEAL, we make good money. We get combat pay, specialty pays. But he lightened the load on that. But during that period, we got real close because I was getting medically retired, and that was literally his job.
Mm-hmm.
So we got real close over the years over that. And then, yeah, when I got out of the military, we got close to, and even, he flew out to Arizona to see my kids born and all that. So, yeah, we weren't close growing up, but over the years, we got real close and talked on the phone all the time. But toward the end of his life, we didn't talk at all, and he wouldn't talk to anyone. He was going through a divorce, had to break up with his girlfriend. He was legally separated from his wife for like over a decade, having a really, really bad time, and he wouldn't talk to anyone. He was kind of circling the drain. I kind of knew he was probably something bad was gonna happen, but I couldn't do anything about it. I mean, and he committed suicide. That really, really affected me. That was about a year and a half ago. So that was really, really hard on me. But yeah, we became very, very close. As close as we could toward the end because he wouldn't talk to anyone.
Yeah, the community everybody was in shock when they heard the news about your brother leaving and committing suicide, and everybody was, even me, I was like thinking to myself, we're losing too many soldiers nowadays, too many service members, veterans. It just the suicide rate went up a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm trying to figure out why it keeps going up instead of going down. And you hear politicians saying, "Oh, 22 is too many or 1 is too many," but there is nothing being done about it. I just seen the numbers going up every year, and I have some friends that also committed suicide, and I'm like, why? Why this trend is? It used to be 22, probably now like 40 a day. So it is. I don't know. It just sucks. I don't have any answer for it. It sucks seeing your brothers and sister just committing suicide. And a couple of days ago, one female committed suicide. She was a veteran. I don't know if it was Navy or Marines. And it's just like, it's crazy. Just it's everyday occurrence. And it's sad. And I feel sorry for your loss. It just I didn't know you or your brother, and it hit me. Because I follow your brother's stories for years. I've been seeing podcasts and seeing that and lose him that way. It just like it kind of sucks. I feel sometimes that the system, we hold our end of the bargain, but when the soldiers come back and Marines or Navy, whatever, they don't hold their end. The government is just like, kicking us to the curve after we hand our end of the bargain. I mean, it's just that's the way I feel. I mean, it's my personal opinion on it. So you don't have to respond to this, but it sucks. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I think it's a combination of just the VA is just bad healthcare just because of the bureaucracy and the nature of a socialized system that's going to suck. So that they don't have the resources they need, and then it's not a private business, so they have no incentive to. But also a lot of it too is we just don't know the answers too, and that's the other piece of it. So a combination of incompetent people with we don't know, and some of it is sort of a double-edged sword. Like we have all these advances in like physical medicine, like we know how to save someone if they get hit in the head or they have a femoral bleed or they get shot 27 times. Like doctors, like ER type doctors and surgeons, we're like really good about doing that. And we have all these advancements in medications and physical medicine, like putting tourniquets on, like putting a tourniquet on. If we had tourniquets back in Vietnam, that would have saved a lot of veterans' lives. Like they weren't even putting tourniquets on really. They're still doing ABCs. But with that, I think as a result of us being able to save everyone's lives, I think veterans are actually in some ways experiencing more trauma than any warrior in the past, because in the past, if you got hit with like a sword or something, you're probably going to die from an infection in like a month from now.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't think warriors from the past were actually experiencing this sustained trauma years after years. Like my brother did 21 years in the teams, and if he got shot 27 times in Vietnam, he would have been dead. So I think part of it is, I think warriors, because of all the advancements in medicine, they're experiencing more trauma than I think probably any warrior has ever in the history of ever, from what I've gathered. And we don't have the answers how to deal with the psychological wounds of that.
Yeah. I mean, that's very true in a sense that in Vietnam, you probably see veterans from Vietnam that have 2-3 tours, but now we're seeing soldiers that have 7-10 tours. It is insane.
Oh, come on. You look at tier 1 operators, it's even more. Like my side, like the vanilla side, like the tier 3 Navy SEALs. Yeah, like 5 deployments. What I had is probably average, but you go to tier 1, like SEAL Team 6 or like Delta Force guys, dude, some of those guys have like 20 deployments. Given there are shorter deployments or 4 months sometimes, but dude, that's insane.
It is insane.
20 deployments.
It
probably
is
more than that.
And the tempo, I was talking to Kawa about it. It's just the up tempo is just like deployment, come back, take a week rest, work up, train, and then go back out again. And it's like a never ending story. It's like the cycle is just like so high, and you always on that state of mind of fight all the time. It's not resting in between, and do that for about 5, 10, or 15 years altogether. And it takes a toll on you. It changed you, and that's what happened. And even Kawa was here, and he got over 14 deployments total, but in the battlefield was like 10 deployments, I believe.
That's nuts.
And that is nuts, and he's still serving. And I'm like, I have a friend also that served in the 7 group, and he has over 14 deployments too. And And all of most of them were between South America, Baghdad, and Iraq and Afghanistan. And I was like, man, that's insane. And
Yeah, and even crazier than that, sometimes people always key up on the numbers, which is I think is useful, but sometimes you have to look at time and country. Because when I got out, there were SEALs that would do one deployment, but they were doing these things called, I think they were called like tribal engagements, where they were living in a tribe in Afghanistan, but it was like over a year deployment. That's insane. They were like there for a year.
really, that's the first time I heard of it.
Yeah, and I know there's like reservists that got called up, just regular army people, like support personnel. They were there for a year. So sometimes, like in the beginning of the war, there was people, especially at the higher up levels too, where you needed like continuity because you had people like in charge of the battle spaces. You probably know this, but for your viewers, like Iraq and Afghanistan, basically we turned it into like almost like little states where they had like their own like little rules. There were still overarching governing rules, but we called them battle spaces. But those battle spaces, a lot of times they would have, high level officers, and they needed a continuity. They couldn't have a person there 4 months and switching it out. So sometimes support personnel, the higher ups would be there over a year. They basically just live there, and so sometimes you gotta, when you're looking at people's deployments, if you're a doctor or therapist and someone's like, I have 4 deployments. Yeah, sometimes it's better question is like, how much time did you actually spend in country? Because that's a different answer.
Yeah, it's true. It's true because my friend, I talked to him and I tried to get him over here, but he don't want to come. But I asked him, I say, how long you were for each deployment? And he told me between 6 and 9 months. And I was thinking in my head, like, okay, so he went there for 6 or 9 months, came back. How long he has for recovering? And he's like, man, about a week.
Maybe take a small break. Use the
Yeah, we
bathroom?
took a break.
Yeah.
So where we left off at, we were talking about deployments. We were talking about
Yeah, like time frames of deployments.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, those my friend he was deployed like so many times, but he deployed me between 6 to 9 months. And I asked the same to Kawa, he was roughly the same. Sometimes 3 months like yours, sometimes like 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's a hard life though. It's a hard life and it's crazy. Also, I saw one podcast. It was a real Sean Ryan, and and he said he knew you personally.
Yeah.
He said you guys
We weren't-
met or you guys work with each other. Can you tell me?
Yeah. Well, I didn't. He was at a SEAL team. You've got, I think at the time we had three troops. Troops are down into two platoons. So roughly in a troop, you've got like 36 guys. So he was in a different troop. So we had different workup cycles, but we all deployed together. So the SEAL team would all deploy together, but it would go different places. We just so happened to go to Baghdad at the exact same time. And we were also on the same compound in the green zone in Baghdad. So I didn't really have a lot of interaction with them, but we were there at the exact same time. From time to time, like there was some downtime in the very beginning when we got there because we were sorting out the PSD mission, the personal security attachment, which I called like the Secret Service type mission. There's some downtime, so we played a lot of Halo too. So there was like this 2 week period where
That was in 2005, 6, something like that.
2005.
Yeah,
And
Halo
so
was big back
It
then.
was huge. And so we all had our Xbox 360s.
Oh yeah.
And we had the little router thingies, and we had fucking Cat 5 cable. So we had like basically shipping containers that they turn into little houses. So we were like a bunch of them all hooked up, and we had just Cat 5 cables running all around. So I probably killed him a few times. He probably killed me a few times on Halo 2. But as far as like direct interactions with him, like on missions, we didn't do anything with him. Although there was a few guys in my platoon that for whatever reason went with him and his crew to do sniper missions. But so we had some interactions with the platoons, but I saw him walking around quite a bit.
Okay.
We just weren't very close.
Yeah, I seen his picture. He has hair back then. Now he's baldy. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would like to see you on his show. Hopefully one day he sees this podcast and reach out to you and take you there because it's kind of like a brotherhood. You got similarities between. That's. I hope you get to his show one day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Let me see what we got going on here because I just. Oh yeah, we haven't touched on this. Neptune Spear Farm. What is about, man? What is
Well, I had the nonprofit version of it. It was Neptune Spear Farms. I started that during COVID, and I was going to start farms at other veterans' houses to do horticulture therapy and also provide food and create a prepping network. But it just so happened, as I went through the whole process, got approved, it happened during COVID. So starting a nonprofit during COVID was very difficult. I had visions of getting grants for, to help out with the whole project. But at that point, literally all the federal grants all went to vaccine research. So that was difficult. And then I just didn't feel right, promoting myself, asking for money for a nonprofit to just private individuals when people were out of work. And so I really didn't like the nonprofit side of it. And me, I'm a go-getter. I like to get things done. But with a nonprofit, there's a lot of board members. You have to approve everything. I mean, if you want to buy some hats or something to put your logo on, you got to get it proven. I just didn't like that. And so I dissolved that. And right around the same time, I decided graduate school is not for me. I had no desire to be in that world. And so I started my Neptune Spear Farm, which was a for-profit venture. And I bought 13 acres in Marana, Arizona, surrounded by cotton fields. Out there, they grow world-class Pima cotton out there. So I was around all these great farmers. And so started my own venture out there. It was raw land, just all brush and cactuses, and cleared some of it and made a small section of it, maybe about an acre, to start providing food. And I was getting ready to expand it, make it bigger. But then my wife decided she wanted to move to Texas because her brother just had a baby and her family wanted to move out here. And so that's why we moved out to Dickinson, Texas. But right now I still own it. It's not a U-Pick farm anymore. I called it a U-Pick farm. I was like literally days away of actually opening up to the public, but now it's basically used for prepping, a prepping community. And that's what's being done now. They, practice land navigation out there, shooting archery, ham radios, obviously growing stuff out there. It's basically just a learning place for preppers because
Okay.
a lot of preppers aren't like me. They don't have land, and so they're just like live in an urban house, and so they need a place. So that's kind of like their fallout place to go to outside of Tucson. Okay. So I still own that, and they manage it for me. I don't charge them anything, but with all that, I don't. If anyone listening wants to be a farmer, I'm definitely against debt, and so if you can't afford it with cash, don't do it. But as a result, I don't have any stress over that farm. With all my write-offs, I don't have to pay taxes on it. And so basically I just let them use the property for free. They manage the property for me, and I don't own anything on it. So my net worth goes up. So with that being said, with my prepping, I also prepare for good times too. And so like, even if you get into prepping the way I do it, if nothing happens, you still, at the end of the day, you still have a piece of property that's appreciating.
Yeah, definitely.
And so if I want to give it to my kids, and so I view it as a prepping place, shit hits the fan place to go. But also if nothing happens, my kids will have a great piece of land that'll appreciate in the future. So yeah.
So how's your life now as a dad and having twins?
Oh, it's awesome. I love it.
Do they play any sports?
They do it's at a gymnastics place, but it's called Ninja Warrior. So you ever see like Ninja Warrior on TV where they have all those cool events? They have like a whole warehouse filled with that. It's geared up for anywhere for little kids to do it, all the way up to if you're actually training for Ninja Warrior, like the instructors are actually training for Ninja Warrior. So they have that too. So they do that. They're in swim class, which is that's mandatory for me. It's not that I don't consider a sport. That's just basic life saving. You have to be able to swim. So I don't care if they become champion swimmers. So they take swim classes, but it's not like competitive or anything. It's more of just at this place. It's all survival stuff. It's just like, can you jump in the deep end of the water, float, get to the side? That's all we focus on for the official classes. That's official classes at a school, and I supplement it too I live in an HOA community, so we have a little pool and we do that. They were doing jujitsu. They just didn't like it. So as a parent, I'm big on pushing kids to try things, but not like long term. So I was like, you have to do this. You have to try it. Gave them 6 months. They didn't like it, so they're out of that now. And they're only 5 years old, so I'm not gonna like push them too much.
Yeah, they might pick it up later. They might come back, be like, hey, I want to do it now. You know, it's just the little kids. They want to play.
Yeah.
They don't want to be roughed up a little bit.
Yeah, because growing up, I saw it. I mean, wrestling in Pennsylvania is insane. People always think about Iowa, and Iowa is a good wrestling state, but like Pennsylvania, anyone who knows about wrestling, Pennsylvania is a powerhouse. But we had these crazy dads. Like I had friends like they hated being there. I wanted to be there. It was my choice, but like some of the dads were like, you have to be there. By the time I got to high school, like they just did not.
They burned out.
They burned out. They would show up to practice and like basically just purposely lose. They would just like not make weight and like not happy kids at all. And so, but yeah, parenting, it's fun. It is literally the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life. It is harder than Navy SEAL training, any of it. It's like kids are designed to push your buttons.
Oh yeah.
And it's I love it though, but it's very challenging.
It is nice to have kids though. It kind of bring a different version of you.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be patient. You have to teach them, and you have to be kind. And sometimes you have to be rough. Sometimes you have to be a teacher, a counselor, a clown. Sometimes you have to be the test guy, the test dummy. So they're gonna jump on you. They're gonna do a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It's cool to be a dad, and I'm happy that you kind of like enjoy the time with your kids, and it's very time with my kids for me. It's just like it's a must have. You know, I have to sometimes out of the day dedicate 2-3 hours, and before they go to bed for next day, just even though if they're next to me, doing whatever, but at least they're next to me. You know, I have to be within arm reach.
Yeah.
You know, I have to be there rubbing their heads, and they just like
Yeah, sometimes like that's all it is. Like sometimes like last night, it was like literally me and my son. Like he's got very mild autism, and he's very verbally smart. He's just is very pinpointed. But a lot of times our interactions they're great, but it's literally him sitting there playing Switch. He likes to play the old school Super Mario World, and I'm sitting there playing like bullet chess, and like that's our interaction. And it periodically we'll stop and be like, "Hey, what's up?"
yeah.
But like sometimes that's our interactions, and I love it. But other times it's more hands on. Like I don't know. The other day he threw something on the roof, so we had to like engineer to get something, his little missile off the roof, and it was fun. We got got some rope, and we got a rake. I was teaching about knots. Tied a knot to the rake, threw the rake up there, and dragged it down. And sometimes our interactions are like that, but yeah, it's our family. My family time is like a must, and like I'm definitely a workaholic, and so I have to like my kids also stop me from like staying at the farm all day because my farm's down the road. So yeah, I love it, and I would say the first 3 years was not like awesome because at that stage, like for me personally, it's not that fun. But now it's like fun because now like they can talk, and now they want to do cool stuff. Like now they want to like I can actually have a not adult conversation, but I can have a more adult conversation with them. We can do all the fun stuff. But for me, the first 3 years was not like the funnest because they can't talk and they're just screaming all the time and changing diapers. But now they're potty trained. It's like, it's awesome. Like,
Yeah,
I
it's awesome.
love it.
Yeah, kids nowadays, I see them, they really smart, really open-minded kids. Like not like me when I was a kid. I used to just eating rocks and playing like a caveman back in the day. But now kids is very intellectual. Now the kids that I talk to, they're very opinionated. You know, they got their own opinions and they can process more information that I used to back in the day.
And I worry about that. Like I would say, I mean, 1,000% kids know more now, but just because of the internet. But like sometimes I worry about it. It's like it's almost like they're being inundated with like too much information.
Right.
Like me and my wife, we definitely allow our kids to have iPads because we think that they have to have those skills to navigate it. But we're pretty hard pressed. Like when they get to the age, we're not going to allow them to have like social media and even news too, because you got to think from like the last, if you believe in evolution, whatever, like we've been around for 300,000 years. It's only the last maybe 400 years we get the printing press. So the printing press definitely changed our minds because now we're being inundated with all this information. And then you get TV, you get that much more information. Now the internet, you're being inundated with so much. And I don't think our minds are like designed to have that much information. And I think it makes kids more anxious to have that much information. Because there's this cool thing called the availability heuristic. And if you look at it through evolutionary terms, it made sense back then. Like if you saw like a wolf or something visually, and maybe you saw two wolves and maybe something else that's not, could end your life, that would create anxiety in you, which was a good anxiety. Like you're like, I have to prepare for this wolf or whatever happens. I need to prepare for that. But our minds, if we see it on TV, subconsciously, we still think of it as a threat. So if you're looking at, all these proverbial wolves all around the world, it creates like this undue anxiety. And I think kids are definitely smarter, but I worry about their mental health with being inundated with all this information, social media, 24-hour news. So on one hand, kids are smarter, but like, is their anxiety higher? I'd probably say yes.
Yeah, that's my next point to that is just like they inundated our airwave with fear. They're selling fear. That's what they sell nowadays.
Yeah.
Fear this or fear that or fear Trump about to do this or fear Trump or fear Russia or China, whatever. It's all about fear, and that's how they manipulate people. That's fear and the lack of food.
Yeah.
Can I manipulate a lot of people to do whatever they want?
Yeah, and even if they weren't like just trying to sell a product, even if they were doing straight and narrow news, still like learning about a shooting, like school shootings, like even if it is done in a nice way, like where you just report, like, here's a school shooting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you like look at all these school shootings, if you actually look at like how many school shootings there are and how many kids actually die every year, it's actually not that many. So some of it is a combination of people just trying to sell fear and manipulating it. But even if you tell it like it is, like schools actually are the safest place for your kid to be, despite what the media tells you. Like the leading cause of kids dying actually in the U.S. is drowning. Most kids under 5, it's drowning. And if you actually look at the number of kids, like the percentage of kids when they're born who will make it to their 18th birthday, it's something like it's well above 95%. Like the odds of your kid dying of anything in America, and yet the media will tell you it's like the unsafest place. I'm like, no. Like if you look at violent crime from the 80s, violent crime using 1980s as a starting point, crime is actually down. Now, if you look at like as a reference point to like 2020, it's a little uptick, but overall we're getting better. But yeah, they definitely selling fear, and then we're just that's why I periodically I don't know how many like social media pages I've had over the years, but I will periodically just literally delete everything. I don't care how many followers I have. I'll just stop. I never had like a lot of followers. I think the most I've ever had was like 5,000 on Facebook. Just I quit everything every couple of years. I think it's good to have a hard reset just to get away from it, and also to start a new social media so you have completely different algorithms.
Yeah.
Like because your old algorithms get saved in there, and sometimes I think it's good to like reset it. And sometimes like I reset my last Instagram about 6 months ago, and like I try mostly to like mostly farming stuff. So like my feed is mostly just farming stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, it's social media with kids. It's you have to put boundaries on it. You have to. I think they put boundaries on it. I don't think my kids are gonna be able to have social media until like, I don't know, at least like 16. I don't know. We're still working right now. Definitely not. But we're working through it.
Yeah, you have to. Mine doesn't have any. My kids, they just like. I think the social media they can interact with is YouTube. You know what I mean? That's it. YouTube.
Yeah.
But Facebook, all that, nah, they're not. They're not grown enough to handle all that information plus criticism and people bullying and inappropriate stuff that they've been saying online. So I'm like, no, they're not having it until they be able to, to deal with it, which is like probably 16, 17. That would be an appropriate age to introduce them to that. But right now, they're just kids. Yeah. I mean,
even then, I don't know if anyone's ready for it because
even adults are not ready for it.
I didn't even vote for Trump, but I've got friends and family that are like freaking the fuck out. They're like, I think they like literally think Trump is Hitler. I'm like, chill out.
That's a fear that they
Just
sell.
chill out, bro. Like he's not putting Jews in an oven. He's actually wants to help Israel. Like calm the fuck. Like they're calling him a Nazi, and he literally wants to help Israel and Palestine. I'm like, are you guys? And like, because with the media, I'm like, I know like they're conscious of the manipulation, but some of these people I've known them since they've been kids, and they're legitimately scared. Like they're not like spinning anything. They're not trying to sell anything. They got maybe 100 followers. It's like their Facebook is literally just for them and their friends and family, and they're freaking the fuck out. I'm like, dude, chill the fuck out. He's not gonna be killing you. Like my wife is Jewish. My kids are Jewish. I'm not scared of Trump. I go to the temple to like we go to Shabbat every Friday. Like I'm like essentially becoming Jewish. I'm not afraid of Trump. I don't think he's a Nazi. Like chill the fuck out.
I know. They just
Like
like
calm down.
I seen friends. They just like, if you voted for this guy, you are gonna pay for it. I'm like,
What does that
Jesus.
mean? Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I think the only thing I wanted is just clear government, like transparency, and stop the wars. That's it. I mean, endless killing from each side. They need to stop, and better economy and more safety. If you against that, I don't know what is your problem, but that's what I want. But you know, people got different takes, and it's all about fear. You know, if they bought into that legacy media and seeing the news, it's all about fears. I seen sometimes CNN. I just sit down and just watch it for about 20 minutes if I can last that long, and it's all about fear. Like, oh, he about to put you in chains, or he was gonna take every immigrant out of the country. We're gonna have an economic collapse and all this stuff. And now they're talking about impeach him, and he's not even been in a 2.5 weeks in, and they're already talking about article of impeachment. And I'm like, here we go again, another shit show. They about to last 4 years. So and he's just getting started. But anyway, it sucks. It just how people think. I guess we divided basically.
Yeah, and I think you can kind of do what I do. Is I think that's part of it. Is like just get off of it cold turkey and like don't consume any of it. Mm-hmm. But even when I come back, like I think it's really important not to put yourself in echo chambers. And like I try to balance everything out. Like I will listen to CNN, but I also listen to Fox News. So maybe I'll go a week listen to CNN, and then a week of Fox News, and I'll maybe like a week of no legacy media, and I'll do like the Young Turks, which is definitely more liberal, and then like maybe a week of Ben Shapiro. So I think like you have to take breaks definitely, but also don't put yourself in echo chambers because every single side's got. Because even like when I go on my left or right side media, I always learn there's always a tidbit of truth.
Yeah.
Of all of it, and you have to like kind of piece it together. But I think a lot of people put too much time into social media, and then they put themselves in the echo chambers, and they're just like, it's not good for their mental health.
No, they're not. They're not good. So, well, I'm trying to be the same way. I'm trying to just listen, and I know there is the truth in something, and not all of it. But you have to be careful.
You know what's funny though? I got kicked off Facebook.
You did?
Not recently, but a bunch of times. But the last time I got kicked off, it was after Trump started saying they're eating the dogs.
Oh,
Which was hilarious to me because I actually had read Barack Obama's book, blank on the name of it, but in Barack Obama's own book, he talks about going to see his stepfather overseas, and he mentions eating dog in the book. And so I was just like, I'm not saying what Trump is saying is true, but there's probably some tidbits of it. And I made a post about that, and I put the direct quote from Barack Obama from his book about that Barack Obama himself admits to eating dog. And like I got kicked off for that. And it was like a very well balanced post, basically saying like, I'm not saying that the people from Haiti are eating dogs, but in their culture, in their country, they probably do. And even Barack Obama himself talks about different cultures eat dog, and it's very, very common overseas. And it was a very balanced post. I got kicked off. So like even if you like try to get the truth, sometimes it's hard to get the truth because people just get silenced. Like we were talking about your podcast, you kind of get little dings. Just like, I don't know why people, if the truth is the truth, it's hard truth. Just let it be out there. I don't understand why you have to like censor people.
Sometimes you don't say nothing wrong. Sometimes you use cited the even government website stuff.
Oh yeah,
And they just like, oh, you cannot say that. I'm like, it is public, official, government official, public information. You find it. It's there.
yeah. Like
They don't want you to say
like
it.
the USAID. I think they call it USAID. I always call it USAID, but on the USAID website, I'm surprised I didn't get kicked off for this. But on their own website, it says in plain language that they give sexual prophylactics to people like condoms all over the world, and they do various other measures to stop the spread of disease and also reduce the population. It like literally says that on the USAID website, and I guess the idea is if this is how they sell. This is how Bill Gates sells it. Bill Gates is a big proponent of vaccines and healthcare for third world countries because if people have a better life, have better healthcare, they tend to have less kids. And so Bill Gates does a TED talk where he says he wants to reduce the population. He doesn't say like he's giving vaccines to kill people, but it's to make them believe that they have a better life so they have less kids, it actually does happen. But on the USAID website, it says that's literally their goal is to reduce the population. It doesn't mention like CO2 or anything like that with Bill Gates, but I'm surprised that I didn't get kicked off for that. But this is after Zuckerberg discussed that he's going to get rid of all the fact checkers. So maybe it's because of Trump's in power that he's not censoring people. But I'm kind of curious if Kamala Harris was in, if I would have been censored.
You
I
probably
mean, technically it's not censored because it's a private business. It's curation. So I would be curated by Zuckerberg. But yeah, I'm kind of curious if Kamala Harris was in, if I'd be, what Facebook would look now. Because Facebook is honestly, it looks a little better than it used to so far.
they're not censor as much as they used to. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not. I guess like to your point, it's like because Trump is in the house, they just like they want to play nice and they don't want to just continue making those decisions anymore, and they just want to just hey, we freedom of speech, and we are big proponents now. But back in the day, about a year ago, 2 years ago, you would say something about the vaccines, man. You were like,
Yeah, you're out.
you post not even being posted. You would get a notification like unable to post because of this or that. You know what I mean? And you cannot say this or you about to get banned. Even my wife got banned a couple of times because of that. I've seen people like in the Facebook jail. Hey, I'm in Facebook jail for 30 days now.
I've been there so many times. It's ridiculous. Like so many times.
I was there for about a week.
Oh,
That's it.
I had like 90-day ones, and then like I would just recreate because I've been on social media like since the beginning, so I've been banned from so many different websites because I just say it like it is. I just say things, and I get banned. Never on. I mean, I was on like MySpace back in the day, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people go to Rumble. Rumble is the one that people use because it's not as restrictive as YouTube or Facebook.
Yeah.
So people go to Rumble and or through social, whatever, but they just go there to post their videos, do live, and talk about stuff that they cannot talk about on YouTube. But yeah, I post these videos on Rumble a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, I use just in case the YouTube gods decide, hey, you're not welcome here. I guess I have it on Rumble at least.
Yeah.
But it sucks, man. It just.
Well, I'm excited that Trump's in power, even though I didn't vote for him, because I honestly don't. I never call it censorship. It is curation because I do believe Facebook is a private company and they can do what they want. So it's like the same as me coming in your house, and if I say something stupid, you kick me out. I think he has the right to do that. My issue with it is I don't think Zuckerberg was actually doing curation. I actually think it was censorship because I think behind the scenes the government was telling Zuckerberg, hey, if you don't get rid of some of this information, we're going to hold you liable. Kind of like Silk Roads with that character who was, he owned a website and he got dinged because people were selling illegal shit on his website. So they shut it down. And so with Silk Roads, the guy, I think he just got pardoned. I can't think of his name, but he opened a website. It was just literally like a sales website, but people were selling like bombs and stuff on there. He didn't know about that. but they like put him in jail for other people doing
doings. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like basically like putting the CEO of Walmart in jail because someone was selling drugs at a Walmart, which probably happens all the time. It was the same thing. But I think with Zuckerberg, I think the government was sort of like looking at it as like as serious as someone selling bombs. Like, hey, if you're telling people not to take vaccines, they were like looking at it as a national defense thing. And so they were like censoring speech, forcing him to censor speech under the guise of national defense. And like that, I think that's what's probably going to come to light once I think Zuckerberg feels safe talking about it. But I don't think he was actually curating it because
No.
to me, he seems more like a libertarian. Like he wanted people just to say what they want. But I feel like he was getting pressure from the government. Like
He even admitted it.
he had to.
He even admitted it at Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
the FBI and CIA, whatever, came to his office and tell him, hey, you need to censor this and censor that.
He showed no proof of it, but based on what I've seen, I tend to believe him. I don't know if I believe him, but it's worth investigation. I think what he said is worth investigating, and my gut says he's probably not lying, and there's probably merits to everything. And I think I don't think it was everyone hates Zuckerberg. I think it was more the government pressuring him to do it,
to change the narrative.
Because after Silk Roads, that whole fiasco, the writing's on the wall, and now there's a precedent. If you don't shut down websites when we tell you to, you're gonna go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
And like that was the precedent. And like people were like viewing it like if you don't take the vaccine, they're viewing it as like, you know, you're selling a nuclear bomb because they're like this is just as serious as a nuclear bomb because if people don't take a vaccine, it's gonna kill more people than a nuclear bomb. So like they literally were thinking of it as a viral nuclear bomb, and like they were taking it that fucking seriously. And so it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with all that.
Oh yeah.
All the truth and FBI. But the problem is right now, the FBI and all the different organizations that are they're probably burning all the papers right now. Burning everything.
That's why
burning everything.
That's why they taking forever to nominate Catch Patel.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, these guys are
shady as fuck.
Shredding, burning, tying up loose ends. Because by the time by the time they certify him, everything was already being wiped out. Everything.
Yeah.
Servers, computers, paperwork, whatever case may be, they will be gone. And he will look around, he will find nothing. That's my fear.
But even if it does go away, I think my gut says a lot of this, we're on a good path now. Because I think even if it gets torn up, I think everyone knows like
they're going to find crumbs. They're going to find pieces of it.
We can't go down this path. But I think even the American people, I think there's a lot of moderate liberals that are like, I'm never going to vote for those people again. So I think there's always going to be the hardcores. But I think we're definitely going toward a more like libertarian type future, which I think is ultimately going to be.
I think so too.
A better mindset.
I think the libertarian this year, they showed up. They see the painting, they see what's going on, and they're like, we're not going that route. You know what I mean? And we're going to vote for this guy. And also having RFK jumping in with Trump, it kind of like brought like that 2-3% of voters, on independent voters, that they needed. And I'm glad they certified him as a health secretary. He will do an amazing job. And they're already scared of him already. So
yeah. Everyone's like saying he's not qualified. I mean, he's like, he was a lawyer for years, environmental lawyer. He understands science. He understands all that stuff. He understands a lot of it.
He understands how to deal with big corporations.
Yeah.
And that they don't want him because of that. Because he know how to navigate those waters. And I don't know. I guess these 4 years would be good. And for the most part, what I'm fear is what the deep state is going to do.
Yeah.
They're gonna feel like a corner tiger. You know what I mean? It will just.
But the thing is, I think even if they do try to take out Trump, like through legal means or illegal means, like through assassination, JD Vance is still a smart dude. So like, even like Trump is building such a good team, even if they try to tick it off, like
Oh, you got
He's
like
crazy.
six.
You're gonna have a whole team of people that are like probably maybe more competent. Like JD Vance is a smart dude. He's young. Like, cool. You take out Trump, fine. JD Vance, you can deal with JD Vance then.
Yeah,
I mean, so I'm confident.
I like JD.
I feel like we're in a country's in a better spot. Ultimately, why I didn't vote for him is because for me, a big thing is like the national debt, and the national debt did increase under Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I understand he had his pressures, and also like I'm big on guns, and I don't know why he did it, but he allowed the bump stock ban to happen, and it's a small thing, but like that's why ultimately I didn't vote for Kamala Harris, obviously, but I didn't vote at all. But that's ultimately why I didn't vote for Trump. But maybe I should have. But so far, I like him.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Tariffs, I'm not. I know he's using it as a negotiating tool. Again, like I talked about, I'd rather have him like bring back jobs through other ways, through deregulation. But overall, I'm very happy with Trump so far. Very happy.
Yeah, yeah. The left has no idea how to deal with him because he just like when he's on his first 4 years, he didn't know how to navigate the system.
Yeah, he wasn't a politician.
He was not, but now he understands, and now he doing the stuff 10 times faster than they used to be 4 years, 8 years ago. He's moving at lightning speed. I mean, he's just signing executive orders, moving people around,
Yeah.
nominating and executing.
Well, I think that's like his tactic is like because they're trying to sue him on different things, but he's
moving too fast.
He's moving so fast, like they're suing him for that one executive order or this, but they can't even catch up to the next one. So like, I think his new tactic is just barrage them with all this stuff
all at once.
Fine, if you get one thing, you can't get all the things, which I think is a smart tactic. But I think he is now a politician, which I think is a good thing. But he comes from a business side, so
It's a combination.
He's
of
almost
both.
like in the military. You have the Mustangs. He's like the best officers I ever dealt with in the military were Mustangs. They were prior enlisted.
Yeah.
So he comes from that wild business side, and then became a politician versus dealing with a career politician. So I think he knows what he's doing now.
That's ring true. That's true.
Yeah, I think him losing was a good thing because
Yeah.
he had 4 years to kind of gather his thoughts.
Yeah.
Gather his team
And not making the same mistake that he did back in and get rid of the people that he had. I mean, if you see it now, all his cabinet members are new.
Yeah.
They're not all they're all rhinos and politicians and lobbyists. They're not there. They're just like fresh people and professionals in their own category. You know what I mean? They know what they're doing. It's like if you work in transportation, you will be secretary of transportation. You know what I mean? He just putting the right people in the right places, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Well, brother, I will not take your time anymore. Sean, I really appreciate you come over here.
Awesome.
And did this podcast. I think we did like 2.5 hours, I believe, close to.
Yeah, got here at
Yeah.
12:30. Yeah.
Yeah, time go fast, man. I'm
Yeah.
telling you. So, if you have a website for your book coming up, let me know. Send me whatever link you have, and I will post them down below. And if you have one more stuff that you want to say before we wrap up.
I guess if you're a veteran, you're struggling, just get help. If you've got the money, I would highly recommend BetterHelp. Use them. Also go with the VA if you can, but the VA is very slow. But there is help out there, and get it. And it does work. It's gonna be a process. So if you're struggling, call someone, get help. If you need to, go to the ER. If you get inpatient treatment, just get help.
Yeah, don't say sorry. All right, that's all for today. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And for follow him, I will post your social media down below so people can follow Sean Day. And that's all we got. I think we're good to go. Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
I really appreciate it, man. I know you're a hard worker and you're busy, but I really appreciate you coming over here. And I got something for you. I will give it to you off once we're done this. And that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.